Hello, captains of armband. Welcome to the first episode of Decoding Football. So, if you're a football fan just like me and you love to learn about the game from different personalities, then this is the channel for you to watch. So, please do join into our podcasts and also do like, share, and subscribe to the channel to make help us grow because we're only 1.3k subscribers old, and we would like to have more. So today, along with us, we have two very esteemed guests. First is Mr. Arka Bhattacharya. He is the co-founder of KKM Sangam Vihar FC. It's a women's football team based in Delhi, and it mainly works with the young female footballers. So before we go into our main podcast, Orko, let's just slightly move away from the Indian football because we will be covering it in the podcast to the biggest football show on earth, which has just started yesterday, the World Cup. Two matches done. How are you feeling about the World Cup?
Not good. I'm a Asian football enthusiast, and it hasn't been a great show by Qatar and Iran. And we used to seeing these teams perform much better in AFC conditions, right? And I think even last year's edition also, Iran were just minutes away from getting into the round of 16. But and a lot of things have overshadowed the start to the World Cup. Essentially, it hasn't been uh, the festive start that we normally associate with the World Cup. But overall, good. I'm watching Senegal with Netherlands now, and it finally feels like the World Cup is on. It's a more evenly matched game, and yeah, I'm looking forward to tonight's 12:30 kickoff as well.
Yes, USA and Wales. That's gonna be a very very good game. So, along with Orko, let's welcome back Mr. Ryan Roy Shah. We have already have had him on a previous podcast, and we are so glad to have him back once again. To those who don't know, he is the club director of the Pune Pioneers Football Club. So, Ryan, same question goes out to you. The World Cup start has been somewhat mellow, but enjoying it so far. And do you think that it's gonna pick up pace as we go along?
Right. So, firstly, thanks for having me again. Always nice to be on the show. Always good to see the activities that Armband Media are taking up. So, always happy to be a part of your shows. In terms of the World Cup, I mean, I've not watched today's game because one was on the ground this entire evening, and now one is here now at 12:30. I'll probably watch a bit, but yesterday's game, I mean, yeah, to agree with the statement on the quality. Um, it's just weird how Qatar didn't want to take risks. So it was like, I mean, it wasn't like Colombia were
Ecuador.
amazingly better than Qatar. It's just that Ecuador were amazingly better than Qatar. It's just that they didn't want to take. It's just that Qatar didn't want to take chances. So where Ecuador were getting in, moving into the final third with confidence, that's where most of their chances were created. Now, when it came to Qatar, the build-up through every, I would say, from the defense to the midfield to the attack, so through every line was so slow that the opponents just found out that this is how we can break them, and that's when Ecuador, of course, they got one penalty, but then that's why, apart from the score, they dominated because of that. So now, hopefully, now since there are more fair, I mean, evenly matched sides, we can perhaps see more of this risk taking because there are enough. Tactics that many coaches use, which is that let's just, and rightly so, because their jobs are on the line, but at least they should just go for it because you're not going to be playing a World Cup every time, so may as well play on the front foot and then lose rather than constantly invite pressure and then concede goals. So I'm looking forward to tonight. I'm looking forward to the midnight kickoff.
So, as you have it from both our guests, is that the start has been somewhat dull because, and but we've already had a first because the Qatar are the first nation as hosts to lose their opening game at the World Cup. So, anyway, the World Cup aside, because the World Cup will continue for the next month or so, let's come to our main podcast is to focus on Indian football mostly, as we have tried to do over on this channel. So my first question goes to Orko is that Sangam Vihar is one of Asia's largest unauthorized urban slums, as we have been told.
It is the
Uh,
largest. It is the
It is
largest.
the largest.
Uh-huh.
Okay, I stand
Okay, okay,
corrected.
okay.
Uh, but it is a marginalized area filled with daily wage workers and migrant laborers and all. So during all your years with KKM Sangam Vihar FC, how have you managed to arrange the necessary cash and budget? Because obviously it's a low economical area, and how do you sustain this at a regional level? And what are the challenges mostly that you've faced?
So it must be clarified that before I came in, the Khel Khelme Foundation was working here, with hence the KKM, right? And KKM was founded by a bunch of TFI alumni, Teach for India alumni, and they got funding. Um, Essentially, the team got funding till the pandemic was there. It wasn't a lot, but essentially the TFI network was good, and it sustained. It sustained because essentially this is a team where we we make do with whatever resources we have. Essentially, this is the only thing we can do at this level. We can't literally say that we're not going to do something. We just have to make do with whatever we have. And the old Hindi saying "ek paisa ka panch paisa banao," like make $5 out of ₹1, right? So funding came from organizations such as Genpact, Deloitte, people who wanted studies done, people uh, before the pandemic. I would say women's sports and women's sports in general were kind of seen as something that new India wanted to take up. The first thing that got cut during the pandemic, or that got shelved during the pandemic, was essentially support to programs such as ours, right? And why we have struggled, as opposed to, let's say, a Slum Soccer or a Oscar Foundation or any of these other, is that we refuse to operate at scale, essentially. So how this sector operates is, somebody funder comes to you, he or she only cares about scale. They'll say take 9,000 girls, take 10,000 girls, right? But for us, it's always been about the competitive space. How do you remain competitive, and how do you essentially turn that into a successful model? Now you take 9,000 girls, or you take 10,000 girls, you take 5,000, even 1,000 for that matter, right? You're not going to be able to produce excellence, right? You're going to essentially, if you have 20,000 to spend per girl, right? In that case, you're going to have like 2,000. 2,000 is what? 2,000 is two kits and one pair of shoes and one shin guard, and that's it. You're done, right? And maybe one weekend tournament, you two, and that's not enough for engagement. I know that we've been speaking about engagement and how much game time we should be getting. It's definitely not like, and in an era where parents spend like 5 lakh, 10 lakh on their kids every annum, like 20,000 per kid is nothing. But that is the bare minimum you need. Like, even if you run a bare bone setup like ours. So yeah, I mean, post pandemic, it's all been about friends, family, well wishers, people who know us. Sometimes people give barters. For example, recently the Professional Footballers Association of India decided to donate 15 footballs. It's been tough. The last 3 years have been tough, but I would say some of our best results have also come during this time only.
So, I mean, in this economic restrictions, you do go for quality over quantity.
Yeah, any day, any day. I can uplift those economic restrictions on myself by going for quantity. I can very easily do that. I can very easily, but it would mean changing my own philosophy, changing what is the ethos of my setup, right? Changing what we believe in. It's a complete departure from the visions and the goals. When we started this, we had a 9-year vision. We are into year 5, right? We had a 9-year vision to become the first community club to get into the Indian Women's League, right? So we stay committed to that vision, and we can only do it if we remain on the path that we are on.
So, continuing on this economic model, I will now go to Ryan with the question is that, as we have told you, Ryan is the director of the Pune Pioneers Club. So, as the director, how do you actually plan to make the club self-sustainable in the long run? Because we have to keep in mind that the return on the investment that you're making is often next to nothing.
Absolutely. Now, before I answer this, I want to say hats off to Orko, because he's been so specific Like, we all have visions, but he's basically hit the need of the hour, which is women's football development. We all have big plans about India playing the World Cup, but then what about our women's team? And the fact that he's included, like, he's got this clear vision. Now, this is something that IWL teams don't have. Indian women's league teams are only bothered about that 1 month qualifier, and if they get through, then they play that 1 month, and then after that month is over, it's goodbye, all the best. Hopefully, get a government job or just rot. Whereas what he's done is he's trying to create a sustainable platform for women footballers in India. And I think we need more such organizations, which is the only time when we are going to be trying to uplift women's football. Because right now I just believe that when it comes to women's football, we all do lip service, that we want to do this, we want to do that, but none of us, I mean, not none of us, but many of us don't really go completely into it in a dedicated manner. So yeah, wonderful, that's great. Now come and of course, maybe through the interview we'll talk about how women's football is one of our key priorities in at our club. But yeah, to answer your question now about sustainability, the I have a belief that people go into bankruptcy as football clubs, and they, suddenly they are left with nothing, because it stems from the passion that we all have. So no businessman in their right mind is ever going to say, now let me run a football team. The money that you put into a football team is enough for you to perhaps open a factory. When you consider the number of the wages you pay foreigners, forget wages, the infrastructure, that ground rent, let's say you don't even have a ground of your own, that per hour cost you give, in that money you can perhaps pay someone's salary. So basically that's the first thing. Now out of that madness, one gets into running a club. Now, how do you fund that ambition? Many club owners one has spoken to, their answer is that let's try and seek sponsorship. Now the thing is that if what one is doing is a social cause like what Orko is doing, then you might have better luck in trying to, not luck actually, you might have a better chance of getting that funding, because you're not just running a team, you're actually impacting tomorrow, the future of India, by uplifting women, or by doing so many programs that many people do. But then, because of the passion we are going into trying to get that funding, does the sponsor really the sponsor doesn't really care about football, it's not cricket at the end of the day. But then through good marketing skills, or rather through a good sponsorship pitch, we get that money, and then we go ham, like we try and sign the best possible players we can, we try and give them good facilities and all that stuff, all in the preparation of getting into that league. Now the issue comes in the second year, when immediately the sponsors understand that the money they are giving us to sponsor our team can be put better into a advertising or a marketing campaign somewhere else, and then they don't want to stick. And then and this cycle has happened with so many clubs. I mean, I don't want to, like, of course we don't want to name, because after all they have all done it with the right intention, but all of them have had this. First year they sign the best players they possibly can at their level. Second year suddenly they are paying people match to match fees instead of monthly salaries, and then third year they are again reducing those match to match fees. Fourth year players are playing for free because of the reputation that the club made in those 3 years, and fifth year, end of story. Now and like, I mean, yeah, if we have to take an example, then I'm sure United Sikkim would be one good one. Baichung started it with the right intention, and then this is what happened, and there are so many others. So the whole idea over here is that letting passion prevail over the business side of football is suicidal. We need to ensure that that the money that's coming in, only that money is going back out into running a team. Because see, let's face it, tournaments we play over here, it's not like there are 50,000, 100,000 people watching. It's not like there's television rights at lower level. It's not like you're going to suddenly be known all over India just through running a club. But then what we can do is, and I'll give examples of this, I'm always happy to give positive examples. So have a very very strong academy. If you have a, for example, let's just take an example. Let's say one has 20 lakhs, 20 lakh budget. Instead of paying people 5 grand, 10 grand, paying the foreigners 20 grand for a 2 3 month contract, how about making sure that a lot of it, or most of it, of course, some has to be put into operations, a lot of it is put into marketing, into sales, trying to reach the right audience. That way, what's going to happen is one will immediately get an influx of students, an influx of cash inflow, and then through that, once you have a corpus available, then we can choose. Then we can maybe, exercise our passion. It may be running a team, it may be doing a social project, it may be just, running a tournament for hardly any direct benefit to us. But then we know that through this model, if we have said that, okay, we are going to put, let's be ambitious, let's say 50% of our of what's coming in we put back there, one thing is for sure, that the club won't shut down. So even 10 years later, because we have been so careful that we are only using what's come in, immediately we continue that way. Now I'll give you an example. Like, so in our first year we started, we were sponsored by Gulf Oil, big company and all that stuff. And like, I mean, we still have it on our jersey and all that stuff. But second year they were not there, but we are still running in a even better capacity, because when we got the money that we got from Gulf Oil, we did not decide to make a ace team for our Pune league. We decided that we are going to do more of, like increasing the number of hours we use on the pitch, spending it towards training younger players, spending it on marketing activities, and getting more students in. And because of more students, you have a better pool of players, and then immediately you can decide to play some of them. It's a financial benefit overall, and that's why we are not struggling. Otherwise, had we just blown up that cash, we'd be in doomsday today. So this is the art. Just spend what's coming in, instead of letting passion prevail and just try and make a Man City team for no return. Yeah.
So, viewers, you are getting a lot of insight on many things related to developing young players, and which is at the very heart of Indian football in these days. So, if you are enjoying this podcast, please do like, share, and subscribe to our channel to help make us grow. Now, coming back to Orko, is that let me talk to you both actually. That both of your clubs, or where you have worked or working with, are in some capacity related to Delhi FC. Now, we know the LAFC is a side which is owned by Mr. Ranjit Bajaj, and Orko, like these types of partnerships. You have a higher tier club. You're going into a partnership with that club. So, can you give us some of your experiences on how this partnership is, or in general, what happens there, and what can happen, or how can it help you into a better future?
So before that, let me just go into the background of why we did this. Right, we were tied up with a team called Rangers the previous season, right, and we became the youngest team ever in Delhi to qualify for a Premier Division. That is the state's top tier, right, at 15. And if you look at the CRS for that year, the CMS, the competition management system for that year, right, we were the youngest across any state tier, like men or women, with an average of 15, right, the whole lives ahead of us, right, to do something. And obviously some things happened. We wrote a lot of emails to the body saying, this not the right way. We didn't get a response. Then we kind of went public with it. A lot of things happened in the background. What happened was, in the aftermath of that, we couldn't afford to lose a year, right? We That tie-up obviously ended. uh, Everybody was kind of, to use the word, intimidated to try up with us. And then we thought about who's the only guy who's going to really stand up to everybody, right? And there happened to be Ranjit Baj. They didn't have a women's team at that point of time. So we said, listen, let us use your name, because we've always wanted to play under our own names, KKM Sangam FC, but that's not possible because the financial restrictions today on a club like ours. for to expect us to pay like 3.5 lakh as an associate entry, or 10 lakh, what a lot of clubs have done this year, right, in the Delhi ecosystem. It's insanity. I mean, I'm just going to call it out because there are no returns for that. Even if I spend 10 years in the Delhi league, there are no returns on that 10 lakh or whatever. So we said, instead of trying to gather those funds and trying to, get our way in, we decided, let's use Delhi FC's name. We said, let's run your entire program for you. So team is ours, the staff are ours. We're just going to keep doing what we're going to do, and you can give us our name. He was more than happy to do that. He welcomed us with open arms. Even 2 sets of kits done. Like, he was super. Like, he even gave the girls some token amounts. He was super supportive from day one, right? And that's a kind of support we've always strived for, despite our excellence. And I say excellence because this is the largest producer of players in the women's category today in Delhi, at least. 25% of the last sub juniors and junior squads have been from this setup, right? The under 17 girls that went to Guwahati, so 25% was from this setup. So despite that, we've had lukewarm responses from big clubs in the local ecosystem who dabble in men's football, right? So he and Henna, especially Mrs. Bajaj, she was also super supportive. So I mean, our experience with with a lot of partners previously hasn't been that great. They haven't, and I get it. I honestly get it because everyone has to survive in the ecosystem. Nobody can just go gung ho against, right? But we have always believed that we're changing the ecosystem not just for ourselves, but for everybody else who wants to come in. We don't want to do it just for ourselves, right? It's for the upcoming generations, right? When you, for example, just give you an example, right? When there's a state selection going on and somebody other than the coach is sitting there and just randomly calling out names, right? That's something you have to highlight, right? Because girls like ours are working 12 months a year, they're toiling 12 months a year, right? So what's the carrot for them? What's the end goal for them, right? It should not be taken away because somebody's sitting there taking irrational decisions, right? So for us, the Delhi FC tie has been really great. The Dynamos Ultras have also supported us. So I would say it's actually a tripartite partnership: Dynamos Ultras, Delhi FC, and us. Right, and it finally feels like we have an army behind us. Finally, the work that we've done for years on the ground for 5 years, it finally feels like this has culminated in us getting the super support. So we are again looking forward to next season with Delhi FC. We finished second in the senior state futsal league this year, right? And we had India internationals play opposite us. We took them to penalties. Heartbreak, of course, but I mean, there are so many positives to take from this entire journey that we've been on, you know. And the one good thing with Ranjit Bajaj, as opposed to a lot of people in the Delhi ecosystem, is that he recognizes talent when he sees it, right? That's something that I can't say for a lot of folks. He's very progressive that way. And if he believes in you, he will do whatever is in his power to help you. So honestly, this past season just ended has been super, like finally it feels like things are turning around for us.
So Ryan, you are also in some capacity related to Delhi FC. So any other dynamics that you want to add between the relationship between your club and the parent club?
Right. So we have spoken about financial and focus on the finances, but then that's because of feasibility. We need feasibility and we need long-term sustenance. But then the passion is still alive. And for us, I don't think there's a better role model in Indian football than Mr. Ranjit Bajaj on how to run a club. He's But if we talk about passion for football, he's probably the most passionate in India because he puts crores into his team. He goes to another level with his team, and multiple teams, not just and let's remember that he doesn't just run Delhi FC. He has Minerva Academy. He supports Tech Throw Swades. He is, I think, a life member of Travancore Royals. He's constantly doing something in football. But all of this, but ensuring that he is doing it with a aspect of feasibility. And how does that happen? Through the camps he runs. It happens through these, he does these 1 month camps, and then he has these annual programs. He's doing the philanthropical part by doing animal welfare, by working with the army. So that's the social side of it covered. He's developing players, which of course I don't need to explain at what degree he does it to. He's I think, I don't know how many players have played national team level after being at Minerva. He has also managed to show success on the field by winning an I League. And this is unheard of, to just get into start off as a club, second division, then get into the league, and then have the first year be average, and then the second year immediately go and win the league. And all this without having the budgets of his competitors. He did all this by beating East Bengal, beating Mohan Bagan to it. And those guys probably have a budget that is, I mean, his budget must be hardly anything compared to that, but he still got that success. And all this is because he's not just an owner who knows how to run the finances, he's also an owner who knows his football. And hence, when he needs to, run things in a certain way, even if it is harsh, he knows why he's doing it. There are enough players, enough coaches who will say that it's hell working for him. There are enough people to say that. But then, after all, we have to look at the success. There are also enough people who will say that he's close to God for them. So now, why we got into a partnership was that, of course, we see inspiration in that man, and we would aspire to to achieve so many milestones the way he's done, and impact across so many verticals the way he's done. So that's what firstly got us to contact him. Now, while any other club or academy, I mean, all upcoming guys want to tie up with ISL and I League teams and all that stuff, they all will have a certain thing that, okay, what is, tell us the terms. Whereas with him, it was more of, okay, what do you want to do with us, instead of the finances. And our aim with this entire partnership with them is two. Number one, one of our core aims is to have more people from this region of Maharashtra to go to the pinnacle of football in India. And of course, this is me saying it as a non-Maharashtrian, but then I started this club with this vision. And we believe that Delhi FC are going to help us in this, because we want to send our best players to Delhi FC for trials. That's one. And we know that once you're in Delhi FC, as long as you do the small things correctly, higher chances are that you will become successful. It is literally like, I would rate it more than the better than the old time prestigious Tata Football Academy. Second thing, we just believe that as a club, we can enhance their brand name, and this is by having more camps. The way they do camps back in Mohali, we can do it for them in Pune. Now, unfortunately, we could not execute that because of the bad weather that there was for so many months, the rain and all that stuff. But that's where we want to help them. That's our way of saying thank you to them. And of course, the business acumen comes over here also. He has made us a model that where we can sustain by earning from that camp. And the earning that we have from that camp will perhaps be good enough at our small level to, maybe run for two camps, may be good enough for us to run a season. So that's why we have tied up with him. Yeah, with him, I mean, with Delhi FC. It's just that Mr. Bajaj overshadows the entire club, but yeah, with Delhi FC.
Obviously, Mr. Bajaj is a great man. He has also been on a podcast on our channel as well, and it's like very enriching to talk to him. I mean, he knows so much, he understands so much about the game, about the condition that the game is going through in the country. And talking on this point is that, as we all know, that this is a cricket crazy nation. First and foremost, whatever happens, the first onus is always on cricket. Football is quite back in the pecking order. So, Ryan, what steps do you believe that the state football associations should take to help the regional clubs stay on course for as long as possible? Because anything happens related to cricket, people tend to forget about what football is.
So I guess the first thing is that state football associations probably have a better financial security than clubs themselves. And the first thing is, see, we understand every association needs to earn. Otherwise, they won't be able to run that league. They won't be able to pay referees. They won't be able to do so many activities that they do. But then I would just be conscious that that in a cricket nation where we don't find enough individuals and groups to be passionate enough to run a club or an academy with the right intention, there's no point in putting up hefty entry fees. There's no point in saying that okay, pay so many lakhs for this, so many thousands for this, because as Orko said, I mean, where do you get that return? You can only get that return if you're backed by a sponsor, which again is the suicidal way of doing things, or you just try and believe that you can catch the right audience with the right net worth, people whose parents have the right net worth, and then equally divide and all that stuff. But then here what's happening is, in a place where there isn't enough football happening, we are sidelining clubs and academies and all that, individuals and groups from doing activities. So that's not good. Right now we need more clubs, more academies, more opportunities for players, more opportunities for coaches, more opportunities for everyone involved. And yeah, because of the security they have, how about just keep very very nominal, even if not nominal, at least reasonable entry fees, where it's still affordable to a level, and where we see some kind of financial sense. That's all that's required, and everything will change.
Okay, so now coming to Orko, is that our nation, first and foremost, even we are at a stage where our men's football team is not doing that great. And on top of that, you are working to develop the women's football, which I know in itself is very, very tough. But just for the viewers to know, let's just talk about one simple challenge, is that also in a country where sports is not seen as a future investment, or where many people don't want to take up sports as a livelihood. So here, what are the social challenges that you faced while scouting female footballers in this country?
So women's football is comes after everything else. It's the lowest of the lowest of the lowest priority. When you look at role models, for example, you have in women's tennis you have Sania Mirza. In tennis you have Sania Mirza. Why am I even saying women's tennis? In tennis you have Sania Mirza. In badminton you have PV Sindhu. In cricket you have Mithali Raj. What is the equivalent here? Yes, I can say a Bala Devi, I can say a Bem Devi, but are these, and no offense to any of them, they are household names, yes, back in Manipur. I spent a lot of time in the Northeast, right? Um, Women's football right now is only popular in the culture mad regions of the country. Right. For example, when Ryan starting trying to start something in Pune, right? He can do it with the men, right? Because uh, men's football, the Premier League or the Champions League is popular there or in Bombay, right? People are now starting to watch European women's football as well. But my point is, in a place like Delhi, which is considerably lower down the pecking order, right? There are so many challenges, right? For example, when the under 17 World Cup squad was being made, right? Scouts weren't even sent here. They were, if you look at the squad, the majority of squad being picked from three regions: Jharkhand, Haryana, and Manipur. That's it. No scouts here. Scouts went to Kerala, scouts went to Goa, scouts went to Meghalaya. There's a different fact that there were no players from there, and Bengal also. But essentially, our point is that our path to making it to the top is much more difficult. Secondly, um, privileged parents will send their girls to play any sport other than football. I've heard this so many times saying छिल जाएगी, कट जाएगा, टूट जाएगा. I've heard this, and it's it's very, so if you look at it from that angle, it's becomes 20 times more difficult in the marginalized community, right? But the correlation we've seen is that in houses where there are the most stable mothers, the girl might play for longer. We have this data also with us, and we keep getting back to data, and how do we change this? If 10 girls get into a game in year 1, 5 will drop out at the end of year 2, right? A further 3 more will drop out at the end of year 4. By the end of year 5, you'll only have one of the original 10 that started playing the game, right? That's 90% attrition rate in 5 years. And that is nuts. We have, through a combination of a lot of sessions, counseling, a lot of the work we do is actually off the field rather than on the field. We do work on the field also, but people often neglect the work off the field, right? Parental education is as important as player education for me, right? So we've somehow managed to get that attrition rate down to, we had rather 30%. Then the pandemic hit, and the pandemic hit, and I mean, people with disposable incomes stopped sending their kids to play. So you can imagine what happened to a setup like ours, right? In a setup like ours, in a community like ours, the girl is often used as a extra earning hand. She's, some places they are married off early, child marriage, child labor. All of these are problems, right? All of these problems got accentuated by the pandemic. It's as if a catalyst was put, a ticking time bomb was put on the society's problems, right? And Veer Das has a speech, right, where he says there are two Indias. If you go to Sangam Vihar, you feel like there are two Delhis, right? There's an Express article from 2017 where they say in Sangam Vihar, life cheaper than water. Very often fights break out here over water. Like, it's still one area of Delhi where there's no structured water connection or electricity connection, right? Some houses get water only for like 2-3 hours a day, right? Most of the water that our girls drink is hard water, which is not H2, it's D2O, right? And it results in a number of health complications, right? So, and I always say this, there are 100 problems affecting football other than football itself, right? And Sangam Vihar is a very typical example of that, right? But like I said, I mean, I'm not even getting to things such as nutrition. I mean, forget that, right? Sometimes even the 30 rupees that we say that you should spend to try and get to training, it becomes a challenge, right? And it's obvious why it's a challenge. In a house of 7 8, where the family income might be 5,000, 10,000, that 30 rupees is a lot, honestly. Like I said, anybody who goes there to Sangam Vihar has a, like, it's like a bubble bursts in their head, like a, the glass shatters essentially. you know this is also, a part of India, right? So I mean, societal problems are there. My only thing I keep reiterating, I want everybody in the football ecosystem at least to not add to this. I want them to, at least, if no help comes our way, that's fine, right? We're not asking for a free lunch. I'm just saying, let's try and, what do you say? Let's try and make it as easy for clubs like ours to have that dream, to at least see that dream. Even though it might be an impossible dream, we may not make it. Let's face it, honest. If you have good players, they'll definitely be poached. Definitely, right? We can't offer what a Gokulam or an Odisha FC or even a Mohammedan Sporting decides to full fledged. It has launched a women's team, as what I've heard. They play in the Kanishri Cup, but we can't match up to those outfits, right? So, I mean, let's try and make it a little easier for us, given that we already have so many problems to contend with. And honestly, this misogyny is a very big problem, right? Like I said, I mean, someone has two kids, they have one boy and one girl, the high possibility everything will be going to that. I know, like, I mean, progressive parents today don't think like that, but that's not the case. In a household where, like I said, the conditions are really difficult, They can only really bank on one one child to alleviate them from that situation. It's often more or less the boy that gets the support.
Now coming back to Ryan, now as Orko mentioned was that in India football, let's say football fanatics come in patches. It's mostly in those big cities like a Pune or like a Kochi in Kolkata, in Delhi, where people really watch football. They follow football somewhat, but in the other regions, not as much. So, like when you are scouting talents, do you go out into these areas where football is not so popular, and if you do indeed find talents from there, how do you nurture them and promote them from your club?
I would first say that Pune and Delhi are not really regions where people watch too much football. Kerala, Kolkata, Manipur, Mizoram,
Hmm.
maybe Goa now. Now Goa have also declined.
Hmm.
These are the five places where football is respected. Nowhere else. In terms of talent identification, in terms of scouting, as a club, our ethos is not really to go here and there to scout for talent. Because if we had to scout for talent, it would be these five places where every club goes to, every academy goes to, just before the I League or just before the youth leagues. We have taken the challenge of trying to scout players who are nicest, because that's the whole objective of our club. Now if we do grow, and let's say one needs to, of course one believes at the end of it that okay, Pune based players are not really cutting it with the expectations we have. This is once, if at all, or when we reach that stage, then we would look at, okay, it's not in Pune, available in Pune. Now what about the neighboring regions? And I would try and keep it in that state, because if we have to just, if all of us have to follow the tradition of running to the northeast to get players, then I mean there's nothing, then there's no difference between us and any other club. So that's why I would not really think I can answer this, because we are very particular about only, despite knowing that we may not find the best talents in Pune, but then this is what we have. We are trying to change, or rather proving ourselves wrong in this belief. Yeah.
So I would like to add on to Ryan's point as to what we do. We go even more hyper local. So we are a community club. For us, if you have an able body, if you have two hands, two legs, and you're born in Sangam Vihar, you're you're in. But you have to show obviously that you're committed to the program and all of that. But for us, we only take, uh, and it's a example of community club. As in, we don't take anybody outside Sangam Vihar. We don't do it at all. We don't believe. We believe that if you catch the girl at say 8, I mean, ideally, I would like to get them at 4, but that's a very, very, very distant dream for Indian football currently, right? I believe if you're born in Sangam Vihar, you're 8, 9, 10, and you show up regularly, you're in. For us, we don't really do scouting. We only do uh, community engagement programs like Mohalla leagues. So if you're there, if you're participating in it, and I'm seeing that you're as interested in week 30 as you're in week 1, like, I mean, that's I mean, you can be fat, you can be thin, you can be slow, you can be fast. I mean, like Ryan said, right? A lot of clubs here are just trying to get the next best player. Ki where will the player come in, right? Coaching here has become synonymous to. I'm not talking about Ryan. I'm talking not of myself. Talking about generic ecosystem. Coaching here has become akin to, can this coach get the best players? Not can he or she develop the players, right? Like you said, everybody's running to the northeast, right? Even clubs based in the cultural heartlands that he mentioned, right? Even they are going to the northeast to try and pick up talents, right? So who's developing the local talent then? Who's helping the local base? Because there are kids born in Delhi, there are kids born in Pune as well. Who's helping these talents? So I believe, and it is my firm belief, that that clubs should only pick up from their catchment areas, honestly, right? That brings down costs a lot, right? You can still run a very good non-residential setup. like we have attempted to do. The moment you get kids from outside, you have to spend on accommodation, fooding, lodging. All of these costs are there, right? I worked in ISL club also, and now I'm working in these two very different setups. So I know the expenses involved, and once it becomes residential, like some people might run a sustainable residential program, and some people might run a pay and play program, and they might use that to subsidize part of part of this. But yeah, for me, clubs have to work in their own catchment area, and more than scouting, what they should do for me is run community engagement programs and then find out the kids who are most actively participating in these programs and who are coming back time and again to participate. And if they're coming back time and again participate, you have a player on your hands. Because the first thing then you need more than anything, more than athleticism, and it's only my belief that you need the will. You need the will and the hunger. Honestly, there is no substitute. It might sound very cliched. There's no substitute for this.
Well, in a way, both of you have indirectly answered the question, as Ryan mentioned that Pune and Delhi both are not the hub of Indian football, but you guys are there. You are, taking the local boys and girls, and you are trying to help them get in touch with with football, and helping them develop as a whole. So, uh, great work from both of you, from both of your organizations. So, one last questions to each of you. I will go with Ryan first. Ryan, your goals as club director, and like for the future, what have you planned?
Yeah, so basically, the first goal is that we need to have as many players from Pune at our club. The second goal is that we need to be a club that invests, that pays attention to, that focuses on our women's team equally as much as our men's team. Be it facilities, be it tournament participation, be it anything. Now, once we achieve these two things on a more regular basis, then we look at becoming a youth I League team. Now, once we have got into that, then we look at that, can we run as a club in the youth league successfully, and catering to our own beliefs of playing as many local players as we can. Once that is done, then we try for our women's team to play women's league qualifiers. As of now, I have not done it because I just don't see the sense in it right now. Not because of women's team, because it's women's football, but because the rules and regulations will make me bankrupt. So that's why I'm not, that's why right now we don't want to do that. Thereafter, once that is done, then we need to aim for what everybody talks about. We want to be an I League team, we want to be an ISL team. I mean, forget ISL, because it's nearly impossible. I mean, I mean, gradually it's changing actually with the new system. There might be a chance of getting in through merit and all that stuff, but it wasn't the case earlier. Now, all of this can only be possible if we have a huge pool of players, and that pool of players cannot be all charity or we shut down, cannot be all pay and play, or we chances are that we are not going to really win too much. So it needs to be a balance of both. And and of course, sticking with our principles of only spending what is coming in, not through sponsorship, never ever ever being dependent on funds that are coming in. So this is our long term thing, very very what I believe really practical, because I want to run this club for 50 years, not for 1 year.
And so we will obviously wish you all the best, so that you can get more success over the years as they come. And Orko, to you, my question is that as an Indian football enthusiast, where do you think women's football in India stand at this point in time, and how quickly can we make this develop?
Yeah. First of all, I like to commend Ryan on his vision. I think a lot of people, like you said, fly too close to the sun and then get burnt, like Icarus, right? And he's going about it the right way. Everybody just starts off and says, "Arey, mujhe ISL खेलना है, मुझे I League खेलना है." He's going about it the right way. Like first, he's saying even before becoming a youth I League setups, I need to do all of this, which is good, right? And everybody should at the first only aim to be a youth I League setup. I agree with him on that, right? Because the I League or the second division even, or even the state division is a bottomless money pit. Like you just throw money and it vanishes. Honestly, you don't know where it goes, but it goes. And we face a lot of same challenges. The grounds, for example, super expensive, right? So for me, I think the one thing that's really missing in Indian women's football, and because I've done this study, and it is not to disparage any state of society, most footballers come from a very humble background, from a very working class background, right? Um, Boys football or men's football still has CSR programs or programs running in this state of society. uh, Not the pay and play. I'm talking about the, so like outfits like us, which work in marginalized communities. For the men, there are a lot that I can think about. For the women, however, this is non-existent, completely non-existent. Maybe before us, Alakpura FC tried to do it in Haryana, uh, but maybe Odisha FC has now started it. They've now started a women's team, but they've started a senior OWL team, Odisha Women's League, and hopefully qualified to the IWL team, right? For me, my dream is to have more of these setups, the community setups, the community clubs, going in and supporting women the same way they would support a men's team, right? And like I said, it like he said, he's right, very rightly point. It can't be completely pay and play. It can't be completely charity as well, right? If it's 70-30, the 70 has to support the 30. For us, unfortunately, we work in an area where it's marginalized, so we cannot this thing we cannot we are a not for profit organization, so we are bound by the rules which say that we cannot earn more than 20% in revenue. Also, we have to look for donations. Specifically, we have to look for donations. I just hope that the ecosystem really opens its wallets and hearts up for such programs. Honestly, because I think, like we've spoken a lot about it, football is like all you need at the end of the day, at the basis levels, not at the levels maybe we are aiming to, both of our setups, is a ball and some space, right? So we need to start with like the basest engagements, right? We need to start with like holding small leagues, small tournaments, small things for women in areas which can't afford. Like today I was looking, very interesting story. Some uh, setup called Mrida in Madhya Pradesh is doing the same work that we were wanting to do, and they're going into highly what do you say, fraught with danger areas, the red corridor, the Naxalite corridor. They're going there and they're picking up girls there, right? Which is very inspiring, right? And there again, like us, they also want to follow competitive model. Like I heard that they qualified to the Subroto Cup from Madhya Pradesh, beating more fancied teams, right? So these stories give me hope. But honestly, for and to avoid a situation again like we saw with the under 17 women's world cup, and honestly nobody wants to see that. Maybe some people got some satisfaction out of that, but I think as Indian football lovers, it wasn't a pretty sight. Let me be very honest, what we saw. So my dream is that one day we have enough setups doing the good work in women's football as well, doing the work in marginalized women, that some, I'm not saying a lot of marginalized men get, but some, the percentage is probably higher than the women. So yeah, I mean that's my aim. And the for me their motive should be competitive, because like we've discussed, there is no such thing as a free lunch. I mean, you can have all laughs and smiles in the sessions, and it's all well and good, but at the end of the day, the women have to be competitive in order to get a chance outside your own setup as well. So yeah, I hope I was able to convey what my dream was.
Absolutely, you did that very well, as did Ryan. So this was a very interesting and insightful session as a host for me. Uh, so the to all the captains of armband, that was all for today. we need to end our session here. Big thank you to both Orko and Ryan for joining us here today and sharing so much about the work they're doing. And from me personally to you guys, big thank you, because me myself, I am a football enthusiast as well. But you guys are at the heart of our country's football, and you are doing such good work. And all my best wishes to both you guys, so that you can keep doing this in the future and be successful at it even more so. And to all of our viewers, thank you for tuning in. I do hope you've enjoyed this session today. And if you have, please make sure to subscribe to our channel for more podcasts such as this one. Until next time, it's goodbye and good night from Armband.